Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas convenes foreign ministers' emergency meeting on Ukraine on Monday. Push for Kiev's inclusion ahead of August 15 talks between Trump and Putin. 8 people killed and 2 others wounded in shooting outside a nightclub in southwestern Ecuadorian town. Southern Europe continues to contain wildfires. Crews battle wildfire for third day in Italy's Vesuvius National Park, while various wildfires forced the evacuation of 1,400 people in Spain on Sunday. And in sports, Crystal Palace beat Liverpool on penalties to win Community Shield. The head of the EU Diplomatic Service, Kaja Kallas, is calling a meeting of EU foreign ministers today to discuss the upcoming Russia-US summit on Ukraine. Kaja Kallas said on Sunday that any deal between Washington and Moscow to end the conflict in Ukraine must include Ukraine and the EU, adding that she will convene a meeting of European foreign ministers to discuss next steps. The meeting will be held virtually on Monday afternoon, and Kallas said the ministers will also review developments in the Middle East and Gaza. The presidents of Russia and the US, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, will meet in the US state of Alaska on Friday to try to resolve the 3-year conflict. Europe insists Ukraine must be part of talks. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance said the United States was working to schedule talks between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In an interview on Sunday, he said he did not think it would be productive for Putin to sit down with Zelensky before meeting with US President Donald Trump. Vance also added that his administration was hoping to reach a negotiated settlement between Russia and Ukraine, but warned that both sides would probably be unhappy with the outcome.
One of the most important logjams is that Vladimir Putin said that he would never sit down with Zelensky, the head of Ukraine, and the president has now got that to change. We're at a point now where we're now trying to figure out, frankly, scheduling and things like that around when these 3 leaders could sit down and discuss an end to this conflict. We're going to try to find some negotiated settlement that the Ukrainians and the Russians can live with, where they can live in relative peace, where the killing stops.
United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting to address Israel's decision to expand its military operations and take control of Gaza City. The session that was requested by several European members focused on the worsening humanitarian crisis and the potential consequences of Gaza's 2 million residents and remaining hostages. Israeli and Palestinian ambassador offers starkly different narratives of the situation and solutions needed to end the conflict in Gaza. Addressing the other diplomats, Palestinian UN Ambassador Riyad Mansour stated that words were not enough to stop the harm.
If its concern was actually security, it would have rallied this plan and should have been happy to see this plan adopted by almost the entire international community. Israel is seeking to cement its full military control over the Gaza Strip and is prolonging this war not to end Hamas rule or to disarm it, but to prevent independent Palestinian statehood.
Israeli Ambassador Jonathan Miller countered the characterization of Israel as the aggressor, noting that their objective was to liberate Gaza from a brutal terror regime.
I wish to reiterate the principles, the 5 clear principles that the Israeli Security Cabinet adopted for concluding the war. 1. The disarming of Hamas. 2. The return of all our hostages, both living and deceased. 3. The demilitarization of the Gaza Strip. 4. Israeli security control in the Gaza Strip. 5. The establishment of a non-Israeli peaceful civil administration governed neither by Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority.
And the United States, a veto-wielding permanent member of the Security Council, accused those nations who supported Sunday's meeting of actively prolonging the war by spreading lies about Israel.
The most recent round of negotiations collapsed because Hamas drew encouragement from efforts to target Israel with libels and lies. The ill-conceived and performative two-state solution conference and unilateral announcements regarding recognition of a Palestinian state. The government of Israel did not make its decision to advance its military campaign in a vacuum, but after months of Hamas's intransigence. Hamas refuses to accept a ceasefire and continues to torture the hostages.
Meanwhile, Italy launched the first airdrop of its humanitarian mission, Solidarity Path Operation 2. Its defense ministry said the mission will continue over the coming days with additional airdrops, ensuring that all aid provided by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other Italian donors is fully delivered. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said they had no choice but to complete the job and defeat Hamas, given the group's refusal to lay down its arms. During a press conference in Jerusalem with foreign media, Netanyahu said Israel was working to increase aid distribution in a humanitarian surge and invited more countries to join in the efforts of the Israeli army with humanitarian aid drops. He said about 70 to 75% of the Gaza Strip is under Israeli military control and that there are only 2 remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza City and the central camps in Al-Mawasi, where he defended his new plan to expand the war in the Palestinian territory. Netanyahu said and added that the military expansion in Gaza aims to bring a swift end to the Gaza war after seizing the 2 remaining Hamas strongholds in the enclave.
The war can end tomorrow if Gaza, or rather if Hamas, lays down its arms and releases all the remaining hostages. Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will have overriding security responsibility. A security zone will be established on Gaza's border with Israel to prevent future terrorist incursions. A civilian administration will be established in Gaza that will seek to live in peace with Israel.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended a newly approved Gaza City plan, calling it the best way to end the war. Addressing international media on Sunday, he said Israel must defeat Hamas, citing their refusal to disarm. However, he faces domestic criticism, with ministers calling the strategy unclear and repetitive. More in this report.
Principles for concluding the war: 1. Hamas disarmed.
Amid domestic and global criticism over his plan for takeover of Gaza City, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a press conference with international media on Sunday. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu outlined his plan, saying his aim is not to govern Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister reiterated his resolve to go ahead with the plan.
Given Hamas's refusal to lay down its arms, Israel has no choice but to finish the job and complete the defeat of Hamas. Last Thursday, Israel's Security Cabinet, instructed the IDF to dismantle the 2 remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza City and the central camps. Contrary to false claims, this is the best way to end the war and the best way to end it speedily.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing domestic criticism over his plan. Ministers Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir criticized the repeated military approach, saying it lacks a clear path to decisive victory.
The Prime Minister and the Cabinet surrendered to weakness, allowed feelings to overcome brains, and decided again to do more of the same thing, to launch a military operation which is not aimed at victory but only at pressuring Hamas to bring it to a partial hostages deal, while clearly saying that should Hamas agree to a deal, we will also agree to stop again. to retreat again, to allow it to recover and rearm. And then again, this is not how you win. This is not how hostages return. This is not how you win a war.
Meanwhile, UN Security Council held a rare weekend session to discuss Israel's plan about Gaza City.
As we have said many times before, Israel must immediately change course. All restrictions on the delivery of humanitarian aid must be lifted. Civilians, including humanitarian and UN personnel, as well as civilian infrastructure, must be protected in accordance with international law. We must return to the UN-led humanitarian aid system at once.
Notably, on Friday, Israel's Security Cabinet had approved a plan to take control of Gaza City, a move expanding military operations in the shattered Palestinian territory, drawing criticism at home and abroad. Bureau Report, DD India.
A senior official from the UN nuclear watchdog will visit Iran for talks on Monday, but no visit to nuclear sites is planned. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said negotiations with the International Atomic Energy Agency will determine a framework for cooperation. Iran has accused the agency of effectively paving the way for the bombings by issuing a damning report on May 31st, which led the IAEA's 35-nation Board of Governors to declare Iran in breach of its non-proliferation obligations. Iran, which denies seeking nuclear weapons, said it remained committed to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Last month, Iran enacted a law passed by Parliament suspending cooperation with the IAEA. The law stipulates that any future inspection of Iran's nuclear sites by the IAEA needs approval by Tehran's Supreme National Security Council. All right, we are slipping into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. North Korea denounced a major joint exercise planned by South Korean and US militaries. 6.1 earthquake hits Turkey. Some buildings cave in. Rescue operations begin. And we'll get you weather updates from across the globe.
Near the heart of India, a land filled with surprises. In your lush forests and the mighty force of your waters. You hold the deepest secrets that take us back in time. When it's said that the gods walk this land, this is where you carve a sense of oneness. And in you, we hear the echoes of peace. This is where we feel the warmth of your faces. Sway to your vibrant rhythms. See hands that mold life. Hands that weave joy. Burnished with the fire of beauty. You captivate.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. The UK government announced on Sunday that it will expand a scheme forcing some foreign nationals to have appeals against convictions heard from abroad to prevent them delaying deportations. The number of countries enrolled in this initiative will nearly treble to 23, with people from those nations now to be deported before they can appeal their convictions. In a separate announcement, Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood said she intends to change the law so most foreign criminals will be deported immediately when they receive a prison sentence. Foreign national offenders make up around 12% of the prison population, and the move could save money. The steps come as Prime Minister Keir Starmer's centre-left Labour government faces intense domestic pressure over immigration as Nigel Farage's right-wing Reform UK party surges in polls. The Interior Ministry said the expansion of the pre-appeal deportation scheme will increase the UK's ability to remove foreign criminals at the earliest opportunity. US President Donald Trump pledged to evict homeless people from the nation's capital and jail criminals, despite Washington's mayor arguing there is no current spike in crime. While details of the plan were unclear, the administration is preparing to deploy hundreds of National Guard troops to Washington, a US official told, a controversial tactic Trump used recently in Los Angeles to tackle immigration protests over the objections of local officials. Trump has not made a final decision, the official said, adding that the number of troops and their role are still being determined. Unlike in California and every other state where the governor typically decides when to activate Guard troops, the president directly controls the National Guard in Washington, D.C. South Korea and Vietnam will pledge deeper economic and strategic cooperation when their leaders hold a summit on Monday, as the former Cold War era foes seek to leverage their business ties to navigate a challenging global trading environment. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung hosts Vietnamese leader Lam as his first state guest since taking office on June 4 and will discuss promoting trade and investment in the Southeast Asian country. The countries plan to sign at least 10 memoranda of understanding at the summit meeting, pledging cooperation in nuclear and renewable energy, monetary and financial policies, and science and technology. South Korean companies have been cited as potential investors in Vietnam's planned nuclear energy, LNG power plants and high-speed rail projects. Trump has imposed a tariff rate of 15% for South Korean goods and 20% for imports from Vietnam. Moving on, amid signs of easing tension across the border under a new leader in Seoul, North Korea denounced a major joint exercise planned by the South Korean and US militaries as direct military provocation and warned of counteraction. North Korea's Defense Minister No Kwang-chol said its military has an absolute mission to defend national security against the large-scale 11-day drills by South Korea and the United States, which he said posed a real and dangerous threat. South Korea and the United States said last week the annual exercise would begin on August 18 to test command control and troop mobilization under an upgraded security strategy against heightened threat of nuclear warfare by North Korea. And in Ecuador, a shooting at a nightclub on Sunday killed 8 people and injured 3 others in the latest violent incident to hit the spiraling South American country. The shooting took place in the rural area of Santa Lucia in the coastal province of Guayas. Heavily armed men arrived at the scene on motorcycles and opened fire on the crowd in the nightclub. According to a police statement, 7 of the victims, who were between 20 and 40 years old, died at the club and the 8th one at a hospital. Authorities have blamed the wave of violence on disputes among organized crime groups linked to transnational drug cartels that have expanded their operations, especially in the Pacific region, where drugs are shipped to Central America, the United States and Europe. Over 2,500 Buddhist monks held a peace march on Sunday, calling for the full respect of a ceasefire agreement between Cambodia and Thailand, as well as the release of 18 captured soldiers. 2,569 Buddhist monks joined nuns and residents of the city to carry banners and Cambodian flags in a 3-kilometer peace march from Wat Phnom to the Independence Monument in central Phnom Penh. The peace march stopped shortly at the US Embassy as a show of gratitude to US President Donald Trump for initiating the ceasefire agreement. A monk also read a statement supporting the Cambodian leader for nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. The July 24th to 28th clashes, the worst fighting between the countries in more than a decade, involved exchanges of artillery fire and jet fighter sorties that killed at least 43 and left over 300,000 people displaced on both sides. The fragile ceasefire has been holding since Thailand and Cambodia agreed on Thursday to let observers from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations inspect disputed border areas to ensure hostilities do not resume. Moving on, a 6.1 magnitude quake struck Sinduri in western Turkey on Sunday. The Turkish Disaster Management Agency stated that at least one person was killed and dozens were injured. It added some 319 first responders deployed to the affected zone. The quake hit with 20 aftershocks ranging from 3.5 to 4.6 magnitude. The quake collapsed 16 buildings in Sinduri and its surroundings, of which 4 were inhabited. The quake was felt across several cities in the west of the country, including Istanbul and the tourist hotspot of Izmir. Weather updates now. First up from India. The Met Department has predicted heavy rains and thunderstorms in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh between August 10 and August 14. IMD has issued orange and yellow alerts for 9 districts in Uttarakhand. It also warned of extremely bad weather with the potential of disruption in the commute with the road and rail closures and interruption of power supply. While in Himachal, due to rain and thunderstorms, the authorities closed a total of 360 roads. This included the Otsanch Road, which is part of National Highway 305. The state witnessed 58 flash floods, 54 major landslides and 30 cloudbursts, reporting losses amounting to 1,989 crores since the beginning of the monsoon season. Meanwhile, in Uttarkashi, administration is working continuously to help people affected by the recent disaster in Dharali and Harshil. Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami continued to monitor the situation, instructing district magistrate and secretaries of the concerned departments to set a 7-day timeline for assessing the damage to private and public property in the disaster-affected areas. Currently, an assistance amount of 5 lakh is being provided immediately to the affected individuals. Officials have been directed to expedite the work of reopening roads in the disaster-affected areas of Uttarkashi. The Bailey Bridge in Limshigad will soon be open for public use. Intense rainstorms and flooding and lightning strikes impacted Mexico City. The heavy rains led to lightning strikes and flooding across several boroughs. Several boroughs were affected by heavy rainfall, with streets submerged and drainage systems overwhelmed. Flash flooding led to stalled vehicles, delayed public transportation and dangerous road conditions in multiple areas. In response to severe weather conditions, Mexico have activated the orange alert for various boroughs due to similar persistent conditions. What began as a festive weekend at the Wisconsin State Fair quickly turned soggy as flash flooding left visitors wading through ankle-deep water and forced an early shutdown of the fairgrounds. Heavy rains overwhelmed drainage systems, submerging walkways and flooding key areas including the racetrack. The crowds trudged through waterlogged fairgrounds, struggling to exit amid halted traffic. The abrupt and marked a disappointing close to one of Wisconsin's most beloved summer traditions, leaving organizers and visitors hoping for better weather in the future. In Spain, wildfires sweeping across northern part forced the emergency evacuation of around 1,400 people as fast-moving flames reached towns, heritage sites and major roads in the region of Castilla and Leon. Sudden shift in wind direction caused the fire to accelerate dramatically, pushing it towards the towns of Carucedo and UNESCO-listed Las Medulas World Heritage Site. Spain, currently enduring another severe heat wave, is facing a surge in wildfire activity. Emergency services remain on high alert, with authorities warning that further evacuations may be necessary if weather conditions do not improve. In Scotland now, a wildfire broke out on Scotland's capital, Edinburgh, on Sunday, sending plumes of smoke high into the sky and prompting emergency warnings for residents and tourists. The fire spread rapidly across the dry grasslands of the landmark, which sits in Holyrood Park, just a short distance from the Scottish Parliament and the Royal Mile. The blaze has impacted access to the site, which is typically busy with visitors, especially during the summer tourist season. Scotland Police issued a statement urging motorists and pedestrians to avoid the area while emergency services worked to contain the fire. Authorities are reminding the public to stay clear of Holyrood Park until further notice and to follow updates from local emergency services. Firefighting crews and volunteers battled for a third day to contain a large wildfire sweeping through southern Italy's pine forest at Vesuvius National Park. The fire broke out on Friday in the forested area. The blaze, about 3 kilometers wide, has destroyed hundreds of hectares of woodland. Dozens of firefighters, civil protection volunteers, local associations and army personnel have been deployed in a coordinated effort to bring the fire under control. Authorities warned that strong winds and steep terrain continue to hamper containment efforts in one of Italy's most visited national parks. Residents of village of Merash in southeastern Kosovo spent weekend fighting a fierce wildfire as flames threatened to engulf homes and farmland in the remote mountainous region. The fire, which broke out early Saturday morning, spread rapidly across the dry terrain, fueled by scorching temperatures and strong winds. With no access for fire trucks due to rugged landscape, villagers were left to defend their homes using improvised tools and sheer determination. The wildfire has already caused widespread damage to farmland. Kosovo is currently facing another intense heat wave, with temperatures soaring and conditions ideal for wildfires. A few days back, the region reported 37 wildfires burning across the country, with 18 still active late into the night. Bangladesh is experiencing a surge in dengue cases and deaths, with health experts warning that August could bring an even more severe outbreak of the mosquito-borne disease if urgent action is not taken. Dengue has killed 101 people and infected over 24,000 so far this year, official data showed, placing a severe strain on the country's already overstretched healthcare system. A sharp rise in fatalities has accompanied the spike in cases. 19 people have already died of dengue so far in August, following 41 deaths in July, more than double June's 19 fatalities. While Dhaka remains a major hotspot, dengue is peaking across the country. Large numbers of infections are being reported from outside the capital, adding pressure to rural healthcare facilities with limited capacity to treat severe cases. The deadliest year on record was 2023, with 1,705 deaths and more than 321,000 infections reported. Well, let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Two boats, Team Holcim and Team Alagrande, were forced to retire from the first leg of the Ocean Race Europe after colliding shortly. Both teams returned to harbour to assess the damage. The race features 7 teams racing 4,500 nautical miles, with a finish in Montenegro scheduled for September 21st. The 10th International Waterfall Jumps in Bosnia and Herzegovina features 16 divers performing daring jumps from the city's iconic 20-meter Pliva waterfall. The competition showcased traditional Lasta-style jumps, emphasizing form and posture. The event has become a major cultural and sporting attraction. Scientists have discovered a series of stone tools on Indonesia's Sulawesi Island, suggesting early human presence in the region as far back as 1.5 million years ago. The tools were found in the swamping area of South Sulawesi. The discovery could challenge current theories about early human migration, especially in the Malaysia region, which lies between Asia and Australia. Hue City in Vietnam has created the Phong Dien Nature Reserve, covering over 40,700 hectares of forest and land. The reserve is split into protected, restoration and administrative zones. Its core aim is to safeguard rare animals, plants and forest ecosystems. This move helps preserve endangered species and Vietnam's unique natural heritage for future generations. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. India's Ministry of External Affairs and Commerce Ministry representatives will brief members of Parliament today on India-US trade negotiations. PM Modi to inaugurate 184 newly constructed Type 7 multi-story flats for members of Parliament in New Delhi. Indian Air Force releases a video that has some clips from India's strikes on Pakistani terror camps post-Pahalgam terror attack.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of our top stories. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas convenes Foreign Ministers' emergency meeting on Ukraine on Monday, push for Kiev's inclusion ahead of August 15 talks between Trump and Putin. 8 people killed and 2 others wounded in shooting outside a nightclub in southwestern Ecuadorian town. Southern Europe continues to contain wildfires. Crews battle wildfire for third day in Italy's Vesuvius National Park, while various wildfires forced the evacuation of 1,400 people in Spain on Sunday. And in sports, Crystal Palace beat Liverpool on penalties to win Community Shield. Focusing on the latest developments in India's foreign policy with particular attention to the ongoing US-India trade negotiations and tariff issues, officials from the Ministry of External Affairs and Commerce Ministry will brief the MEA Standing Committee today. The briefing comes amid escalating trade tensions between the two nations following the imposition of additional tariffs by the United States on Indian exports. Officials are expected to update the committee on the current status of negotiations, highlight challenges faced and discuss possible strategies to mitigate the impact of tariffs. The meeting will also review diplomatic efforts aimed at finding common ground to facilitate smoother economic cooperation while keeping the national interest in mind without any compromise. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate 184 newly constructed Type 7 multi-story flats for members of Parliament at Baba Khadak Singh Marg in New Delhi. On this occasion, Prime Minister will plant a sindoor sapling at the residential premise. The Prime Minister will also interact with Shramjeevis or labourers on this occasion. The complex is designed to be self-sufficient and is equipped with a full range of modern amenities to address the functional needs of the members of the Parliament, incorporating green technology. All buildings within the complex are constructed to be earthquake resistant in accordance with modern structural design norms. A comprehensive and robust security system has been implemented to ensure the safety of all residents. All right, we'll go across to DD India, Siddharth Bhardwaj. He has more information on this. Siddharth, PM Modi to inaugurate new flats for the MPs, latest in a series of government-led efforts to modernize official accommodation in Delhi. Tell us, how does this fit into government's larger push to modernize official infrastructure in Delhi?
Well, a very good morning to you, first of all, Abhishek. And this is seen, first of all, in this very fact that, due to the limited availability of land, sustained efforts have been made for the vertical structures of these apartments where I am right now, the Baba Kharat Singh Markets in the central part of Delhi. And you've said it right, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be inaugurating these flats, for the honorable members of Parliament. And these flats, Abhishek, are type 7. When you say type 7 means they are self-sufficient. They have all the modern amenities in them, and there is a robust security system here in the premises to make sure the safety, to ensure, in fact, the safety and security of the honorable members of Parliament. Apart from that, the highlight is that these apartments are Divyangjan friendly. So you can, imagine that when these structures were being made, the inclusivity was kept in mind. Because these apartments are Divyangjan friendly, so all the facilities for the Divyangjan are here, and this actually speaks also volumes about the fact that how nation honors our Divyangjan. Apart from the fact, these apartments will be contributing to the energy conservation, to the effective waste management and renewable energy as well. So yes, keeping in mind the sustainability factor, Abhishek, keeping in mind the green technology, these apartments are made. Apart from that, these adheres to Griha 3 rating, and also they comply with the National Building Board, National Building Code of 2016. So everything keeping in mind the sustainability factor, the green technology, Divyangjan friendly, these apartments are made. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be planting a Sindoor sapling, Abhishek. We know that Operation Sindoor, the success of Operation Sindoor, the world knows about it. And when this sapling will grow, this sapling will bloom, so will be India's aspirations and people, and it's a symbol. When it will grow, people will get to know that how the success of Operation Sindoor and India stands on terrorism. Because India has shown through Operation Sindoor, Abhishek, that enough is enough, and there is zero tolerance towards terrorism. And apart from that, the world has also got to know that this is now a new normal for India. So yes, that sapling is itself a symbol of that. And apart from that, Abhishek, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be interacting with Shramjeevis. It also shows how Prime Minister, thinks about everyone, thinks about a common person as well, thinks about the MPs as well, honorable members of Parliament as well, and about everyone. He will also be addressing the gathering here, Abhishek. So all in all, this goes on to show that how India is developing, how India is it's traveling through the path of success. And also, apart from the fact, Abhishek, that in past 11 years, 344 residences have been made for the Lok Sabha members. So yes, definitely these apartments have been made, these structures have been made keeping in mind the sustainability, keeping in mind the environment factor, keeping in mind the green technology, and also inclusivity. Abhishek.
All right, Siddharth, thank you for the timing, but yes, we'll keep coming back to you. Parliament now, both the houses of the Indian Parliament to meet today after facing a repeated disruption on Friday. The upper house or Rajya Sabha to take up the Manipur Goods and Services Tax Amendment Bill 2025. The Manipur Appropriation Bill 2025 will be taken up for consideration and passing. The bill to authorize payment and appropriation of certain sums from and out of the consolidated fund of the state of Manipur for the services of the financial year 2025-26, readjustment of the representation of scheduled tribes in assembly constituencies of the state of Goa Bill 2025 will be taken up for discussion in the upper house. The lower house or Lok Sabha to take up the National Sports Governance Bill 2025, the bill to provide for the development and promotion of sports welfare measures for sportspersons, ethical practices based on basic universal principles of good governance, ethics and fair play of the Olympic and sports movement, the Olympic Charter, the Paralympic Charter, international best practices and established legal standards, and to provide for the resolution of sports grievances and sports disputes in a unified, equitable and effective manner. The National Anti-Doping Bill 2025 will also be discussed in the House. All right, the Dibyendu Mondal, Lead India correspondent, is standing by. He has more information. Dibyendu, good morning. Just 2 days of business this week and last few days of the monsoon session. Tell us the key bills likely to be tabled, and do we expect the Parliament to function smoothly?
Well, good morning, Abhishek. You know, the Parliament's monsoon session this time around has seen a complete washout, if we can say that, because there have been repeated disruptions from the opposition side ever since the session began, with their demands shifting one goalpost to the other. Only apart from the fact that there had been a constructive debate on Operation Sindoor, which extended more than 16 plus hours in both the houses separately, was the only, sort of business that we saw in both the houses of parliament. But having said this, the government is clear now on their strategy that the key bills that are listed for business or the legislative businesses in both the houses of the government, in fact, both the houses of the parliament, will be sailed through despite the protest that the opposition has been carrying out on the floor of the house. But the opposition strategy is clear that they are not going to budge down and they are going to continue their protest on the floor of the house, and in fact, both on the floor of the house as well as outside the parliament. This particular issue is on the SIR, which is the revision of the electoral roll in Bihar. The opposition strategy is they want to corner the government, given the fact that the Bihar election is just around the corner. But the government, as I said, Abhishek, is clear on the fact that they want to push through key legislations and key legislative businesses in both the houses. And we have seen over the last one and a half week, despite the opposition's protest, key important bills like, the readjustments of seats of scheduled tribes in the state of Goa. Amendment bill was passed in the lower house. It is now tabled for today in the upper house. There were a couple of bills from the Ministry of Shipping that were also passed in both the houses of parliament, despite the opposition's protest. But today, the anti-doping bill as well as the sports amendment bill are two key legislative bills that are expected to be passed in the lower house, which is the Lok Sabha, as well as the Rajya Sabha is expected to take up the Manipur's GST bill as well as the appropriation bill of Manipur. These two bills were again passed in the Lok Sabha last week, and it is now being tabled in the Rajya Sabha for passage, which was expected that the bills will see the light of the day. But the key important part, Abhishek, is also with the fact that, the opposition, the speaker has been requesting, and the chair has been requesting both the opposition parties to help the House function, but, they are not budging down. The speaker also says that a lot of time has already been wasted. So, it's of course, as you said, there are just 2 more days left for this week and a couple of more days left after the Independence Day for the Parliament to function.
All right, Dibyendu, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. Moving on, Irish Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs Simon Harris will meet representatives of the Indian community in Ireland on Monday to assure them of safety and security. The meeting comes as attacks against Indian community members soared in recent weeks. Earlier on Friday, in a social media post, Harris had expressed shock and appreciating Indian community's excellent contribution to Irish society. He asserted that Ireland will never ever tolerate racism.
I'm deeply concerned by what we've seen happen in the last number of weeks. The Indian community in Ireland have made and continue to make an incredible contribution to our economy, to our society, to life in this country. There's at least 80,000 people of Indian descent living here in Ireland. And I tell you, our health service would fall over if it wasn't for them. So many parts of our economy would. And we have seen a spate of brutal, horrific attacks. And one in particular sticks in my mind of that poor 6-year-old girl. And what she experienced in Waterford, I think, is something that would sicken all of us. This is a good country. This is a country of Céad Míle Fáilte. This is a country that recognises the incredible value that the Indian community have made. It's a country that abhors racism, and we must continue to call it out.
The Indian Air Force on Sunday released a video showcasing its operational capabilities with a special focus on Operation Sindoor precision strikes carried out against Pakistani terror infrastructure on May 7. It presented how precisely India hit terror hideouts in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. In the video, the Air Force also detailed the strike capabilities of its combat aircraft, fighter helicopters and the mastery of its flight personnel who guard Indian skies with utmost alertness and lightning-fast turnaround time.
Shielding our land, watching over the seas. In today's era of multi-domain threats, air superiority is non-negotiable. At the heart of our nation's defense lies a robust, integrated air defense network. Layered, adaptive, lethal. From cutting-edge radars that peer deep into hostile skies, to missiles that strike with unmatched precision, to combat aircraft that dominate the aerial battle space. Every second, our air warriors monitor, assess, and respond, preserving the sanctity of India's skies. In 1971, it was the Indian Air Force that struck with surgical precision. The governor's house in Dhaka neutralized. A message written in the sky: India will not hesitate. In the heights of Kargil, when the enemy took the high ground, it was the Indian Air Force that turned the tide, pounding peaks at impossible altitudes. And when terror crossed the line in Pulwama, the Indian Air Force answered with Balakot, crossing limits, hitting where it hurts precisely.
A terror attack which was targeted at fired on tourists in Jammu. 22nd of April in the Belgaum terror attack.
IAF responded with precision, speed, and resolve. Across the Himalayas, over the island chains, over oceans deep, the Indian Air Force stands ready, vigilant, unseen, unmatched. For the first time, the Vice Chiefs of India's Army, Navy, and Air Force soared together, a symbol of jointmanship and shared resolve. IAF and Army Chief flying together. An extraordinary moment as the chiefs of the Air Force and Army shared the cockpit, strengthening bonds beyond the battlefield. Formation fly past. These flights are more than milestones. They are messages of strength, unity, and trust, echoing across the skies and generations. 4 service chiefs from France, India, Germany, and Spanish Air Force flying during exercise. In an unprecedented show of global military harmony. When the disaster strikes, the Indian Air Force is the first responder. We respond swiftly, fearlessly, and relentlessly. Be it rising waters or raging storms, our aircraft deliver critical aid to stranded lives during floods and cyclones. From the high Himalayas to the coastal plains, we reach where roads can't, bringing hope, food, and medicine. Evacuating the vulnerables to safe havens, across states, across borders, wherever humanity calls. Whether at home or in distant lands, our aircraft carry compassion, delivering tons of relief across continents. When flames threaten forests and lives, we fight from the skies. From battlefield logistics to humanitarian liveliness. The Indian Air Force is...
Moving on, in Puri, Odisha, sand artist Doordarshan Patnaik created a sculpture based on the theme Har Ghar Tiranga. The campaign is part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav initiative launched in 2021 to encourage people to hoist the national flag at their homes and celebrate Independence Day. The initiative aims to ignite a sense of patriotism and raise awareness about the Indian national flag. Prime Minister Modi urged citizens to continue sharing their photos and selfies on harghartiranga.com. Business updates now. Major share indexes crept higher in Asia on Monday as upbeat company earnings underpin high valuations in the tech sector, while a crucial report on US inflation would likely set the course of the dollar and bonds. Markets imply around a 90% probability of a September easing and at least one more cut by year end. The euro was flat at $1.1644 and comfortably above its recent trough of $1.1392, while the dollar held at 147.66 yen, having met resistance around 147.90. Oil prices slipped amid risk. The talks between Trump and Putin could make progress to a ceasefire in Ukraine and possibly an eventual easing of sanctions on Russian oil exports. Now, Mexico is helping settle a dispute between Adidas and Zapotec artisans over a shoe called the Oaxaca slip-on. The design looks like traditional sandals made in Oaxaca, and locals say Adidas used it without asking. This upset many as the sandals are part of the culture and income. President Claudia Sheinbaum said Adidas is now talking with Oaxaca officials to make things right. The designer, Vilisha Varia, has apologized for the sandals and now wants to work with the community. The dispute highlights ongoing efforts by Mexico to protect its traditional designs from global fashion brands, and artisans hope for formal recognition and protection of their craft. Sports updates now. We'll start with soccer. FA Cup winners Crystal Palace beat Premier League champions Liverpool 3-2 on penalties to win the Community Shield after an entertaining 2-2 draw at Wembley on Sunday. The match showcased debutants' dramatic moments and a standard performance from goalkeeper Dean Henderson, who proved to be the hero in the shootouts. This win marks Palace's second major trophy in recent months following their FA Cup success in May and signals their ambition for the new season. Chess now, India's Nihal Sareen claimed his first win on the Chennai Grand Masters 2025 after he stunned top seed Arjun Erigesi in a thrilling fourth-round encounter in Chennai on Sunday. Having lost 2 of his first 3 games in the tournament, Sareen finally struck form against his higher-rated compatriot as he bagged full points with white pieces in a match that lasted more than 4 hours and 70 moves. Erigesi is placed second in the standings but trails Kemar by a point with 5 rounds to go. As many as 7 young Indian women boxers won medals in the Under-19 Asian Boxing Championships in Bangkok on Sunday. Pugilist Nisha and Muskan showcased their skills by winning gold medals, while 5 others bagged silver. Of the 10 female boxers in the fray in the Under-19 category, 9 will return with medals which will include 2 gold, 5 silver and 2 bronze medals. This achievement underlines the prowess of the Indians who competed against pugilists from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and China, among others. And the India Under-20 women's national team secured qualification for the AFC Under-20 Women's Asian Cup for the first time in 20 years on Sunday. India qualified after defeating host Myanmar 1-0 in the final Group D encounter in Yangon. Pooja scored the decisive goal as India finished on top of the group with 7 points to make it to the 2026 edition of the main tournament in Thailand. The last time India qualified for the AFC Under-20 Women's Asian Cup was back in 2006. Following the feat, the All India Football Federation announced a reward of $25,000 for the women's team. And Medellin's famous flower parade, the Desfile de Cieteros, lit up the city on August 10. Around 540 locals carried flower displays on wooden frames, an old tradition from Santa Elena. Locals say the event is more than a show and is a celebration of community pride and Antiochian culture. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.